This episode of Return to Base is brought to you by Black Rifle Coffee Company. Black Rifle Coffee Company is veteran-owned and serves premium coffee and content to people who love America. We already know that Black Rifle Coffee roasts the best Colombian and Brazilian beans on the planet in their facilities in Manchester, Tennessee, and Salt Lake City. But did you know that Black Rifle Coffee Company is on a mission to hire 10,000 veterans in the next 5 years? This is why I pick their coffee over others and drink it every time and everywhere, from bumping around in Humvees all the way to sitting here recording this podcast. Black Rifle Coffee Company is the real deal. They put up when others shut up. If you're ready to taste the freedom, go to blackriflecoffee.com/RTB and use coupon code RTB20 for 20% off your one-time order or coffee club membership. Hey, and while you're there, sign up for the coffee club. It's a subscription-based coffee experience. They'll send monthly shipments of coffee right to your door so you never miss a fill-up of freedom. Hey everybody, welcome back to the 15th episode of Return to Base. That's right. 15 episodes. We've been doing this all year, having a new episode come out every 2 weeks. It's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of fun. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this episode. Bravo Zulu, this is Victor Lima. We are RTB. This is Return to Base, a VeteranLife podcast. Welcome back to this episode of Return to Base. Today we have Dave Duffy, retired Special Forces officer, and now the Tropical Smoothie King of Columbia, South Carolina. I am honored and thrilled to be here with you. A quiet professional, of course, but you know what? Maybe we'll get some drinks in us and let it flow. Who knows?
Exactly.
On, Dave.
I'm glad you said Tropical Smoothie King because, you know, Smoothie King's proprietary, so I can't say I'm a Smoothie King, but that's a rival brand. I'm just a smoothie guy here in Columbia, but no, hey, thanks for having me on the show, Cliff. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So Dave and I just recently connected through a mutual acquaintance who said Dave would be interesting to talk to. And I gave Dave a call and we had a little bit of a conversation and dadgummit, I agreed. Dave is an interesting guy to talk to, especially for our audience. Number one, GWAT vet. Number two, he's kind of forging his own path in one way, but also kind of staying on the path in another way. It's a weird it's a juxtaposition, if you will, of the transition story, right? So we'll get her. Excuse me. I don't know what's going on here. Maybe I got the vid. No, not me. I've never had the vid, by the way, not officially.
January 1st, 2022, I caught the vid. And so my year got off to a fantastic start. But, it sucked, and I'm not going to minimize it, but I didn't require hospitalization. And 2 weeks later, I was back on my feet. So all good.
Thank God for that. Two people in my house have had the vid, and we separated ourselves from each other a little bit, but somehow myself and my youngest did not get it. Thank God.
Yeah.
But
good on you, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I was saying about the path that you forged, is interesting to me, and we will get into it a little bit, but, what I'd kind of like to do is just talk a little bit about, the relatable things that make this conversation connect with our audience, right? So, join the Army right out of, what is that? This is pretty small school, right? Pretty a
little small school up on the Hudson River. I think it's the South Hudson Institute of Technology, or SHIT for short. But I went to West Point out of rural Virginia. My family doesn't have a history of going to college. Both my parents took a couple of classes, but never got a degree. But all three of their kids ended up. But I was the oldest, and was really looking at going to VMI, quite frankly, but we took a family trip up to New Jersey, and my dad's a history buff, and so we visited West Point the summer before my senior year, and applied and was fortunate enough to make it, and surprisingly enough, graduated. So, so that was 87. I went infantry, and then I went through. And I always get these damn numbers goofed, but I went through selections in February of 92 and then went through the Q course shortly thereafter. And I got the team in 93. March of 93, I had 371 back when it was 3-numbered teams, being an old fart now, but I was a team leader on 371. Shortly after the battalion had activated, I wasn't the first team leader, but I was the second.
Oh, wow.
And so, I mean, third group existed before.
That's a long time ago, man. 1990, 3?
That was 93. 93, yeah.
Wow.
All
right.
Because, third of the fifth became first of the third during the first Gulf War. Mm-hmm. And then they activated second battalion. And third battalion, I want to say, stood up in maybe 92, I think, early 92.
Seventh grade?
No, third group. Third battalion.
No. Where'd that battalion come from?
No. They were just, it was all taken out of high. They didn't, they literally stood up a new battalion and brought in fact, the first battalion commander of 3-3 was a major because they were trying to, because, we'd only been a branch since 87. So they just didn't have field grade officers who had kind of matriculated up. These were guys that were Q course graduates, but May never really had done anything in SF, and then got a letter saying, if you want to branch SF, then come along. So it was an interesting transition for SF. Not, it worked, but
did it? No, it's fine. It did work. It did work.
We did the best we could with it. I mean, it really did. But but no. So I went, and then I retired in 08.
For the casual listener out there, the Tropical Smoothie fans who are logging in here today because they're Tropical Smoothie groupies.
There's a bunch of them.
Selection he's talking about is Special Forces selection. It's the rite of passage, if you will, that you have to go to earn the right to be treated like dog crap for the next, 18 months in the Special Forces Qualification course, lovely and lovingly referred to as the Q course.
The Q, that's right. The Q.
And you just stand around on a basketball court for about half the time. And back when you went there, you didn't get a chance to get slapped around even.
I went through SEER school, so I went through Camp Slappy
during the pipeline, or did you have to go later?
No, I was in a pipeline.
Okay.
In fact, we literally, you signed in and then went right to SEER school after you did your in-processing.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. Hey, welcome to Fort Bragg.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to Camp McCall.
Now we're going to take you to Pineland, which I'm the only one who can see it.
Oh, look here.
We got a Pineland hat that is interesting.
People around these parts don't know what Pineland is, man.
Oh yeah, Pineland's a real thing, man, and we got a real life Pineland going on kind of right now over there in Europe, Eurasia.
Trying to go. 10th group guys getting excited.
Yeah. So what was it? Let's go back to West Point, right? So because I was so fascinated with this West Point, right? You said you came from rural Virginia.
Yeah, I worked.
I can't even pronounce rural half the time. So
yeah, no, I worked. I did not grow up on a farm, but I worked my uncle's farm, who's dairy and beef. I started right before I turned 13. I worked every Saturday during the school year, and I worked 6 days a week during the summertime. And I did that until I graduated high school. And it taught me a lot of things. It was one of the best decisions my parents ever made for me, although I didn't appreciate it at the time. Because it's farming. It's incredibly hard work, and it's dangerous work. And you can do everything right and still fail, which is one of the hardest things about farming. But it taught me how to work. It taught me that work wouldn't kill you. It also taught me that, of the people I was working with, which were, black, white, male, old, young, nobody really gave a shit your religion or who your parents were or what you believed in. It's whether you contributed or not. And if you contributed, then you were accepted.
Yeah.
And that went a long way with me, that if you pull your weight and work hard and are value added, then that's good enough. Yeah. And that stayed with me my whole life to this day. I try to plant that on my boy because he's getting ready to turn 13. I'm like, hey man, once you're 13, you're working shifts in the store. And
bro, can you like trade him in for another 12-year-old and just keep doing that? I got 13-year-old myself, and I love him. I love him to death, but they are a challenge.
He's a good boy, but yes, he's my son. Which means he's got some wonderful characteristics that should set him up for success as an adult, but it makes him a bit of a pain in the ass as a preteen. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Do you ever regret that you don't have a farm to put him on?
Well, I would love to put him on one. There's actually one that's fairly close to us. I don't know the people who own it. I doubt they'd employ him because he's not family. But I got to tell you, all those things I learned on a farm, he can learn in our stores. And it's the same thing, and with even more diversity. I mean, I got kids from all walks of life working for us. All races, genders.
All the genders?
All genders. God bless these kids. These kids are, the two that I recognize, but there's a lot of kids that they're confused out there, and they're looking for acceptance, and they're not sure how to get from A to B in life. And so I've had girls hoping to be boys and boys hoping to be girls. And I've had all sexualities. I've got young men who are extremely flamboyant and young women who are the opposite of that. And yet, if they work and contribute, then nobody cares. They really don't. Show up, do your job, get along with people, and even if you keep to yourself, just be part of a team that contributes to getting the mission done. Mm-hmm. In our case, it's fast, friendly service with accurate orders. Do that, and you're going to get paid, and you're going to get raises.
Yeah.
And just through the jobs, I've been exposed to kids that I never would cross paths with in life. And it's made my life a little bit better. And I like to think we benefit from each other's experiences if we take time to learn about them. And being in the stores has allowed me to do that. It keeps you around young people, which is a good thing because young people have energy, and us older people like to feed off that energy. Yeah. And if you can do that, then that's a great thing. And there's lots of benefits to these stores. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'll trade them for a case of beer and a set of snow tires, most days of the week, because it's a tremendous amount of work. And sometimes you feel like you're spinning your wheels, but the benefits have far outweighed the frustrations. Yeah,
that's good. And, I like what you said there about being around these young people, these young folks. And by the way, of, all genders, of all sexualities, of all sexes, of all colors, creeds, ethnicities. It's important, and I found that when I've been sequestered in my little special forces bubble for too long, I get out of there and I learn a little bit about the world, and I can often empathize with what they're going through, and ultimately, it's just a human experience. Right. People live their lives a little bit different than you, maybe even a little bit different than you would. Given the choice, but there's something to be learned for it. And say what you want, but it does take some bravery to put yourself out there in a strange, what we would consider strange way. But we're from the old school, man, and you know, we're trying to change. And I think what I would ask the young folks is to give us a modicum of respect and patience and grace too, and we'll come along. But no, the equalizer is work hard, do your job.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And half the time, good Lord, man, the young people lacking experience, so they think they know things when in all candor, a lot of times they truly don't know anything. And so you can't squash them. You know, you can recognize an experience, but part of working is developing that experience. And we've had, at any given time, depending on what time of year, I've got 60 to 100 employees, and we've been doing it for 10 years. So and it's a revolving door on it. I mean, there's not much retention in this job because we're not a destination. We're a stop off on somebody's life arc, but we're not a destination when it comes to work. So we've easily had 1,000 kids roll through, and we've had some that immediately don't work out. They're not all great kids by any stretch, but the ones that stick with us end up bringing pretty good kids. And it certainly allows you for a little bit of hope for the future. I'll just say that much.
Yeah. Do they keep in touch?
No. And only, and I say that because, I don't get on social, if they send me a Facebook request, I don't take it because it helps allow that, hey, at the end of the day, it's still an employee-employer relationship. Right. We're not friends. We can be friendly and should be friendly and respectful to each other, but we're not friends. And so, but you'll be surprised. You'll cross paths. I ran into a girl at the UPS just the other day that worked for us for about 3 months, and it was a very friendly conversation, and I was glad to see her. So you do cross paths. I mean, we're in Columbia, but we live in a little community called Irmo, and it's a small community, and you run into a lot of people. So, but no, as far as keeping in touch, no, not really.
Yeah, and I get that. Like, I myself, having been in the community that you were a part of it, I haven't kept in touch with everybody. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of one of those things. I kept in touch with the few and the proud, I guess. Yeah. But hey,
I mean, I keep up with guys from, that were on my team. Mm-hmm. And that's the benefit of social media.
Yeah.
It's just, it allows you to keep up or remain in contact with people that otherwise I'd never remain in contact with.
Yeah.
Just never.
Yeah. Well, and isn't that a great thing about the military is, I mean, shit, you worked closely with people you probably never would have ever ran into, right? And
absolutely.
The military is a melting pot. And by the way, let's throw the elephant in the room. Is SOF, Special Operations, is pretty vanilla, right? Like it's not the most integrated. There's quite a few Hispanics.
If you're in 7th group, you get a lot of Hispanic population.
Yeah, exactly. There's plenty of Hispanics. But we're underrepresented, largely in African.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of there's historical reasons for that, which bleed into the culture of the military, and there's not enough African Americans in the infantry for that matter. And
that's true.
And it goes back to the fact that, prior to integration, those troops are all in support units.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so to this day, your role model, young people coming up choose mentors and role models. And a lot of times they choose those that look like them and act like them or whatnot. So you have
their uncle
or relations. You're exactly right. And so even to this day, when commissioning at West Point, a majority of African-American Black cadets, they go into the combat service support. They don't go into the combat arms. And it has nothing to do with bravery. It has everything to do with that's the traditional path that their mentor was in that unit or was that. And so, and then also the historically Black colleges that have ROTC units that produce a lot of officers, again, the tax or the PMOs for those units are all from not exclusively, of course, but predominantly they're from combat service support. And there's not a damn thing wrong in the world with combat service support.
No, not at all.
They're desperately needed, or else nothing happens. But that's why there's to this day there's an underrepresentation in the combat arms, particularly in the infantry of Black soldiers, and then even less is Black officers. Yeah. And it has nothing to do with bravery or physical ability. Nothing. Yeah. It's just that's the role models we put in front of them.
Yeah, I guess I've never looked at it that way. But you're absolutely right. So, well, I became Special Forces. I joined the Army, and guess what? My older brother, like 7 years before me, joined the Army, and then became Special Forces.
There you go.
So, well, I suppose
for me,
I followed his path.
Yeah, well, you absolutely did. And my dad was drafted. My grandfathers all served. My uncles all served. It was either Navy or Army. One uncle was career Navy. The rest of them were career. They were all enlisted guys, and I was going to enlist. That was the path I was going to do. But when I got accepted, then I was like, all right, it's not going to cost the family anything, so I'll give it a shot.
Yeah. At the time, did you know it was such a prestigious college?
No, I didn't even know it existed when I went up there.
That's amazing.
I used to think the Army-Navy game that I saw on TV was soldiers playing sailors in football. That's a true story. Because and this is way before Google.
Yeah.
This is way before cell phones and social media. I mean, my parents scrimped and saved for a set of encyclopedias for us that, we got one a month. So by the time you got the last one, the first one was already obsolete. But, that's what so I didn't know. And then when I visited the place, it was like, let's give it a shot.
You must have been in for a rude awakening when you arrived as a police.
I was, but I also, I had people that were, okay, this is how it's going to be. But, people can tell you what the experience will be all day long. Mm-hmm. Until you experience it, it means nothing.
Yeah.
You can't tell people experience. They have to go through themselves. But
I bet you have, we talk about this on this podcast a lot, right? But like the most memorable and those things you look back on with like almost nostalgia are the times that you hated it. And I imagine at West Point, I don't know, how many miles did you walk?
I was not a century man, which everybody assumes I was, which means you walked 100 hours. I didn't get caught much. Let's just leave it at that.
You kept your nose to the grindstone?
No, I was a rugby player. I went up there to play football because I was an all-state football in Virginia for a AA school. We won the state championship. I made the football team at West Point, but I was undersized and buried on a scout team and getting my rear end beat in practice and failing school. So at the end of the first semester, I quit the team, but trust me, nobody was like crying any tears over the fact that I left the team. I think they were surprised I was still on the team, to be honest with you, when I went to the coach and said it's not working out. And I went home for that Christmas, and then I came back, and H.R. McMaster was a table commandant of mine. He was a senior my plebe year, a firstie. He told me if football didn't work out to give rugby a try, and I never heard of rugby in my life. And so when I got back from that Christmas, so this would have been early in 84, second semester plebe year, I called him and reminded him of our conversation. And I met up with the team that afternoon and went on some insane endurance run where we ran to the top of the ski slope in the snow. And I loved it. And everybody was welcoming. And it was just a great experience. And I ended up playing rugby. The last rugby match I played was 5 years ago. I played all Army ball for 10 years.
Wow.
It's some of the best. It's the best network I have. As great as Special Forces is, rugby's been better.
Wow.
When it comes to networking and opportunities and everything involved with it. Yeah.
Are you a fan of the sport in general?
Yeah. I follow Six Nations. My last name's Duffy, so I root for the Irish. And I enjoy watching the All Blacks play. I mean, now the All Blacks are the best team on the planet. I have not. Is that the one with the South African book?
No, it's actually called Legacy.
No, I have not read it. I have to look it up.
And I recommend it. It's a good book on leadership and how small teams can become elite teams. And rule number one is, I believe, is sweep the sheds. So it's an interesting concept. Is after every game, they kind of like talk about the game, win or lose. Right. The most senior members of the team get up, pick up a broom, and sheds are, lockers. And
right. Okay.
And they just start cleaning, right? It's one of those things where like the stadium staff comes in afterwards and places spick and span because, they display leadership. No, it's a great book.
I've had.
I'm not getting paid for this endorsement.
No, I've had the privilege to see the All Blacks play in sevens a few times. I've never seen them play in 15s, but they got a hell of a program. So, I'm a fan of the game, man. I enjoy it.
Yeah, they've managed to instill a culture, and here's an interesting thing that I didn't know until I read the book was. I don't know anything about rugby, right? But I always assumed like the All Blacks were all like people from New Zealand. Right. And they're not. You get people from Canada or wherever these people come from, and they learn the haka because they buy into the culture. Yeah, well, you have to be a citizen or of this, descent, so to speak. To play on the national team or play on the All Blacks. But the haka is a Maori war dance. Yeah. And so just because you live in New Zealand doesn't mean you know how to do a haka or that you have anything to do with the Maori. So that's one of the things. If you make the team, then yes, that's first thing you do is learn how to do that because that's what they're known for. Yeah. Yeah. So let's circle back here. So West Point, great, good fucking experience. And we met as the branch infantry, so I guess you did a few things right? Well, I was in the bottom half of my class, but just a smidge. But I cannot say I graduated. I graduated in the bottom half. Rugby saved me. So I was basically in my mind at the time, I was a rugby player that attended West Point. I didn't get a lot of it. And so I rebelled against a lot of it. And really the worst thing that happened to me is I went out to Hawaii for cadet troop leading training, CTLT. And I linked up with an infantry unit out of the 1st to the 35th Cacti. And I did 5 weeks with them, of which 3 of those weeks we were on the Big Island in the Pakahola training area. And I truly felt like I was the platoon leader. I had a platoon sergeant said, "Hey, sir, hey, cadet, there's no platoon leader here. You're it." And I loved it. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. And they all accepted me, and the battalion commander, even if they were just blowing smoke up my rear end, I didn't know. I didn't even consider that at the time if they were, but everybody's like, you come back here and serve with us, and we got a spot for you, and blah, blah, blah. Problem is I had 2 more years to do.
No, is that right? Yeah, I had 2 more years to do. And so I went back to West Point going like, all right, I'm ready to go. Commission me now. And
got a little cocky.
Yeah, very arrogant. And I made it through, but I made it a lot harder on myself than I ever needed to be. But I made it through. Got commissioned infantry. I got assigned to Fort Lewis, Washington, because I'd never been out to that part of the world before. And the better posts like 82nd and Vincenza and a couple of places were already taken. I could have gone to the 101st. And in hindsight, professionally speaking, I should have gone to the 101st. But I grew up in Virginia, and I just wanted to see another part of the United States than Kentucky. So I went out there, and I knew 2nd Ranger Battalion was there, so I figured I'd try to give it, try to get to 2nd Bat, which I got accepted to, but my battalion commander wouldn't sign the 4187 interpost transfer, which frankly led me to Special Forces.
That seems like the story I hear all the time.
No, I was. I had 3 platoons. I had a rifle platoon, then I had an AT platoon, and then I had a scout platoon. Well, when he gave me the scout platoon is when he told me I wasn't going to 2nd Bat. And so I decided I was going to get out. In fact, I started interviewing with the FBI and made it through a gate or 2. But in the interim, that scout platoon was fantastic. It was just a great group of Americans, and my platoon sergeant was a great guy. And so I decided to stay. I was like, well, if I'm enjoying this, why would I leave? And my AT platoon sergeant was a Vietnam veteran. He had a break in service, and he was an old guy. He was mean as hell. I loved him. But he did a stint with 5th Group in Vietnam, and that's, he came across and goes, hey, I heard that 2nd Battalion shit didn't work out for you. I said, nah. And he goes, well, you don't want to go there. He goes, go SF. And we had the scouts had done some work with 1st Group on Lewis, and I wasn't that impressed. I mean, they kind of treated us crappily, and it wasn't the best experience. And I was like, I don't know, those guys didn't do much for me. He goes, I'm telling you, go SF. And I really wanted to continue a direct relationship with NCOs and soldiers, although that, and so SF offered that pathway to just kind of try to extend it a little longer. Yeah. And so, and then Desert Storm happened, and we didn't go to Iraq. We went to the NTC to train the Georgia National Guard guys. And so when it ended at 100 hours and everybody and his brother, got medals and accolades and CIBs showered upon them, and I didn't, I was like,
should have been to 100 and burst.
I was like, well, I'm either going SF or I'm getting out, because I'm not going to stay in the infantry, where most everybody in my peer group was able to participate. Yeah. And again, some of that was just anger and a little bit of jealousy, and maybe not that accurate, but that's where my mind was at the time. And so I went SF, and I got to tell you, it was the best professional decision I ever made in my life. And to this day.
Even better than Tropical Smoothie.
Even better than Tropical Smoothie. 100%. Nah, being SF I loved it. Yeah. And that's why I still do defense contractor work, is so I can stay in the community, even if it's an auxiliary role now instead of directly working with G's. I mean, it allows me to stay even if I'm way on the outside, I'm still within the orbit of our community, and I enjoy the hell out of it.
So you got out in 2008. Yep. So I'm doing back in the napkin math. That's like right at 20 years.
No, 21 okay. Years. I figured it said paid him. The reason I got out is because I met my wife. I finally she's my third wife, and I finally got a wife I like. And I love that. Thank you. You know, I did the burn up the highway between Columbia and Fort Bragg, and the Army was going to send me back overseas for a tour. And I was like, you know, if I do this tour, then she's going to be gone. And my 06 Ford was coming up, and I was like, if I make it, which by no means was a guarantee, but if I make it, then now I got to do another 5 years. I will not be a group commander. I was not a battalion commander. So it's like, I won't be a group commander. I'm going to be a staff dick. And I said, most of the 06s I see, they don't like what they do.
Yeah. Shit. Most of the 04s I see hate what they do.
Yeah. I said, there was a guy in third group, Master Sergeant Brett Blankenship. He and I played high school football together. And he told me, he said, look, man, you got to know when to ride off into the sunset, man. And he said, don't force anybody to ride. Just do what you know when to do that. And it was good advice. And so Chief of Staff called me up like, hey, you got to finish your packet so you can, you know, for your 06 board. I say, hey, sir, I'm putting in my retirement pack. And he wasn't happy with it. I said, look, sir, nobody's got me on any group command list. So the Army will be, and Special Forces will be just fine without me. And they have. And so I retired in 08 and moved to moved to Irmo, South Carolina, IRMO. It's the only one in America.
Nice.
Yep. And I've been here ever since. And my wife and I have really created a nice life for ourselves.
That's awesome, man.
Yep.
You know, there's something there that I want to like dive into just a little bit. Right. And
Sure.
It's the way that the military rank and promotions are kind of structured in positions. You know, bottom line is there's not enough battalions for lieutenant colonels.
Right.
There's definitely not enough groups or in special forces groups. I don't even know what a regular army brigade.
Yeah, brigade.
There's not enough. Sorry, man. Sorry, dude.
I apologize to me.
I bet, you know what? Somebody once called me a beracist.
Okay, all right. I got it. I haven't heard that term before.
I'm like, what? I'm a beracist. What is it? No, because you only think like a Green Beret. And I'm like, oh, well, guilty as charged. But
if you were any good, you'd think the same way, brother. That's
But yeah, so that's one of those decisions you got to make because, I mean, if you're not on command path, you're not on a path. And it was abundantly clear. I went out to Washington, D.C. one time because my brother, who was a warrant officer, got the General MacArthur Award for leadership.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Heck yeah.
Pretty cool. Him and one other soft guy who was over the fence ended up getting it. Anyways, at one point, they took us from an auditorium to like another room in the Pentagon. It was kind of cool. It's the only time I've ever been to the Pentagon. And I was walking up this stairwell. And at like the landing of the stairwell between floors was a lieutenant colonel with a special forces tab saying, right this way, sir. Go up there and take a right. And I was like, I know you.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, what are you doing in the stairwell? And he's like, I hate my life. And I was like, it was like one of those things. It's like, oh, dude, like it's notorious for. Listen, I hope this isn't boring everybody else, but for special forces guys, you see like 04s majors who just hate each other and hate life, and then you're like, man, I'm so glad I'm an NCO.
Well, and I tell you, because I ran the G3X. In fact, it became the G3X under me. Initially, it was the Special Programs Division of USASOC.
Explain what G3X is real quick.
It's the classified operations that Green Berets are involved in, primarily in the irregular warfare and unconventional warfare applications. So it could be in a peacetime setting where you're just doing assessments and some shaping operations, or it could be in a wartime setting where you operate in denied areas with or without proxies, but the classified aspects of that. And so I love that job. And for you to tell Captain Duffy, team leader, that for 5 years you'd be a lieutenant colonel in USASOC having the time of your life, I would have laughed at you. Mm. But I became the UW subject matter expert for SOCOM during that period. And I was on all that's when the irregular warfare was resurrected as a term. And they did all the SOCOM, did all the manual stretch shit. And I went all over the planet. I went to Holo Island. I went to Colombia. I went to Yemen. I went to Iraq and Afghanistan. I went to Djibouti. I just went wherever there were Green Berets that RGO wanted to know if they had what they needed to do as the Title 10, as the Walmart supplier for Green Berets. Were we doing what we were supposed to do from Fort Bragg? What's ground truth? And I had the time of my life. I was an 05 that worked for a 3-star.
Which 3-star?
The G3, the 06. Well, I started off with Kinsinger, and then I went to Wagner. And, Wagner had a Ranger background, and he was a little bit of a tough nut to crack at first. But Sergeant Major Hall was great, even though he's a Ranger legend. In fact, he's the honorary Sergeant Major of the Ranger Regiment. And he's a friend. Mike Hall's a friend of mine. But Mike Hall was instrumental because I had to brief the 3-star twice a week. I remember Wagner was talking about, we were doing some operations in Iraq, and Wagner goes, okay, so those are UW. And I said, no, sir, they're not. That's a FID operation. And I explained to him, FID, Foreign Internal Defense for your audience, but I explained to him why by doctrine and definition it was foreign internal defense versus unconventional warfare. But then I said, now what we're doing here and here, by extension, is unconventional warfare. We're by, with, and through, yada, yada, yada. And he goes, okay, I got it. Well, then the meeting ended, and Graduate Hall goes, hey, Colonel, congratulations on having the courage to tell the general he was wrong. And I'm like, what? He goes, you wouldn't believe how many people I see sit there and not correct the general because of all I can think of is fear. He goes, Wagner doesn't know everything. He goes, and your job as his, office of responsibility is to make sure that he's correct. Mm-hmm. And he goes, and you did. He goes, he was wrong. You corrected him. You did it in a respectful and educating manner, and he got it. He goes, so good work. I was like, I said, well, thanks, Sergeant Major. I mean, I always take a compliment from you, but I find it surprising what you told me. But I had a great job. And then Paul Tompkins was retired CW4. He became my mentor, and he retires April 29th, and I'll be at Bragg for his retirement as a GS. Yeah. It was a great job. But it came to an end, like other things. Yeah. And I decided that the last thing I wanted to do in the Army was a job that I thoroughly enjoyed with people I thoroughly enjoyed, and I was eligible for retirement, so it's not like I walked away from money or anything. But they said it was a coin toss for 06. I don't think I would have made it. I don't tell people I would have made it, but it didn't matter. I wasn't assessed, so I retired as a lieutenant colonel and never looked back.
Let me tell you, man. 20 years, high 3, lieutenant colonel. You're all right. I'm fine. Yeah, no, COVID be damned, man. Yeah, no, it's. I appreciate the house payment they send me every month. That's right. So that's right. Good. Hey, you know what? Good. And thank you for your service. By the way, you earned it. Back at you there, man. My fellow Green Beret. Yeah, so let's talk about that transition. So your transition from the military was, frankly, what a lot of people think that they have to do, and what others think that is the last thing I'll do.
Yeah, it was easy.
And by that, by the way, let's go into it. It
sure.
means our friend here, Lieutenant Colonel retired Dave Duffy, went to the dark side, defense contracting.
Yeah, I was a dirty contractor. I oversaw a program that I contracted to under the G3X, the ASO contract.
Yeah,
not to violate any classification guidelines, but I was the COR which is Contract Officer Representative for the Advanced Special Operations contract, and so NEK, which was run by Bruce Parkman and Tony Porterfield, who I knew through playing rugby. Now, even though they're both retired Green Beret Sergeant Majors, but their time was in 7th group and 10th group. I only knew them from the rugby field. They hired me for NEK. I was the first O to be hired by them as a full-time employee because their entire business model was NCOs and warrants. And I told them, and they're like, man, are you going to have a problem working for an NCO? And I was like, Bruce, you're the officer here, not me. When you hire me, I become a Bubba for you. You pay me for a job. Mm-hmm. So there is no concerns about rank or, class or what have you. I go, you're the CEO of the company. You're the general officer.
You're not an NCO anymore, baby.
You're not an NCO. And I would tell you, and they would be like, oh, you officers. And I go, I'm a retiree just like you. Mm-hmm. But I will say this. I loved working with NEK. It was a great company. It was so much energy and excitement. And
you got a good job too. That's a fantastic game.
Yeah. And I was able to work out of my house doing business development for NEK. And business development is that's SF 101 stuff, man. It's networking, it's shaping, it's finding opportunities, it's developing opportunities, it's putting together the correct team to go after opportunities, and then it's bidding on them and winning. And whether you did all of that or only a part of that. And I was with them for 5 years now, and it was good money. And we took a lot of pride in supporting teams. Now, my wife told me, like, hey, you're an overhead guy, right? Which means as soon as the company starts either, flatlining on revenue or, have to cut costs, you're the first one to go. And I remember clearly telling her, like, what? You don't know what you're talking about. This is an SF team. This is SF. I said, this is like being back on team. You don't know how tight we all are. This is great. NEK was purchased by Cubic for a lot of money. And I was given 90-day notice to find another job or good luck to you. It was a good lesson to learn. To back up just a bit, we had decided to open our first store, shoved all of our money in, and then 3 months after we opened our store, NEK was sold, and I was given that, hey, in 90 days, you're out of a job. Wow. So that was stressful. But I was going to go back to Afghanistan and do overseas contract, and I talked to a company, and they were ready to hire me. And fortunately, about 45 days into the process, I was hired by Silverback 7, which was a company out of Northern Virginia, another SF company, to do the exact same work. And it was a good outfit, a very good outfit. And then they were bought by Patriot Defense Group, but I was actually part of that sale. And I was with PDG for a couple of years. I did a year with Beyond Soft, which is a recruiting company.
Yeah,
and then, Steve Brignoli, they run a good outfit up there. And then a year ago, I was picked up by Exetor as a 1099 BD doing part-time work because with COVID, the travel all stopped, and I decided I didn't want to travel like I used to. And Exetor is a great company. I really enjoy working with them. The company culture, it's the same two guys. They're a $500 million company, but the same two guys that own it still run it. There is no board. There is no massive layers of bureaucracy. They're a reasonable company. They listen, and then they make a decision, and everybody's on board with that decision. And as a part-time consultant contractor for them, I feel like I'm a full-time employee. They don't treat me as somebody different, and I'm grateful for that. So that's
what I would say a lot of senior officers, people don't understand there's that distinction. JMOs, man, they get swooped up so quick by all these companies because they work 90 hours a week. But the opportunities actually begin to constrict for like the higher rank, especially in officer community. Right? Yeah, you can go out and you can forge your own path, but you know what you know, and when you
sometimes it's like I got my first job from my network,
right,
and then I've been able to monetize that network. I mean, I've been being paid for my network now for 14 years. I mean, that's unheard of. Well, I work real hard to keep it fresh and to meet new people and develop new relationships and go to new events. And I've got a strategy on how I do all that, and it's been successful. But I literally had coffee with an Army 06 finance officer that was being offered a job by the University of South Carolina for $85,000. And he was like, that's just not enough. I need to make 150. And I said, look, boss, if you can get 150,000, then by all means, get it. I go, but you're not going to find that around here. It's Columbia. This isn't DC. If you're in DC and you're coming out of a job in the military, like acquisitions, where defense companies want you because you know the KOs and the CORs.
Yeah, you have a phone book.
Yeah, I said, then you're of huge value and you can command that money. Here in Columbia, South Carolina, doing work for the university, you're still getting paid on the higher end of the scale for a startup job. Yeah. I said, you can make anything you want for this job. I go, but he ended up taking it. But that's what happens to a lot of senior officers is they have an over. They believe their self-worth is more than what it really is.
Yeah.
And they don't.
Let's be clear. They're veteran. They have a lot of worth, but you still have to, there's things that you can't control.
Yeah.
Like you can't control, you can fucking move.
Yeah. But you've got to, you got to know the market. You got to know the market. You got to know the market.
Yeah.
You got to know what's available. And I'll tell you this, the other thing with the stereotypical 06 GOFO, General Officer, Flag Officer, they're used to being executives. They don't want to work. They want to make decisions. Mm-hmm. They want that JMO to come to them and say, hey, sir, we got a couple courses of action. All right, brief me. All right, we'll do that. Okay, great. Where's my coffee? And they want to get paid a lot of money for that. Well, unless you start your own business, that ain't going to happen. And so sometimes there's a bit of a learning curve that's hard for guys to overcome. It's rare where you get a guy that comes in and rolls his sleeves up. I mean, it just is. I mean, I can name Mark Phantom's one of those guys. Kurt Sontag's one of those guys. You know, they showed up and just rolled their sleeves up and started working and making money.
Yeah.
Droopy Clark, former MARSOC commander. He's one of those guys. You know, these guys just like, hey, yeah, I might have been a GO once upon a time, but you know, I'm here to work. Mm-hmm. And then they're invaluable. You know, Barney Shampo's worked for a Korean company because he used to be the second ID commander, and he's done very well, but he's worked. Yeah. And there's so many that they want to go, you know, they go, hey, put me on your board. You know, I had an old battalion commander that was a 3-star general retired. He's like, hey, put me on your board. I go, sir, we don't have a board. He goes, oh, well, make one and put me on it. I said, it's not my company. I just can't say that. That was years ago. But so it's for all ranks,
Yeah.
If you're going to retire versus a guy getting out after one hitch or whatever, then it's difficult to put yourself back into an entry level mindset.
Mm-hmm.
It's not impossible, but it's difficult. And as long as, and I had a Green Beret 06. He goes, Dave, I don't know what to do. I said, dude, you're a natural network. You've been trained to network. You've been trained to identify key nodes on a network. You've been trained to develop access, approach plans, to make them receptive to you. You've been trained to do that. I go, put that on the business world. It's not hard. Just put a little thought and rigor into it, and you'll be fine. And he was fine. He did great with a defense company out of Charlotte. He did great.
Yeah.
But it's hard to put yourself back into an entry mode mentality where I'm above it. I'm just above it.
A lot of people are like that. And I talk to a lot of folks who I've been out for 3 years and I've done okay. And a lot of people come and talk to me and they ask me what I did.
Right.
And when I got out, I networked for a job and I got put in basically an entry level, an analyst position, if you will.
Right.
And I quickly worked my way up through the company before it shut down, unfortunately, right before the COVID thing. But it's hard.
I would tell you what you just said, though, about you worked your way, you work.
Yeah.
That's one thing that veterans have.
Yeah.
If they decide to do it, they will put their nose down and work. And their dedication, their maturity, their decision-making is noticed by employers, and then they're given more responsibility, by and large. But you got to go through that initial entry period where you may not be making the money you think you should be making, but as long as you recognize that I'm going to crush this place.
Yeah, you'll get there, man. You'll climb. Believe me, you'll climb.
The attitude is like, y'all have never met anybody like me. I'm going to own this place. I'm going to own it. I'm going to own it. You'll see.
You talked about, hey, you're SFI, you know how to like build a network and everything. And one of my favorite little things from Special Forces training, not in the school, but a different school I went to. I think NEK ran it, as a matter of fact.
I love that company, man.
But it was out of Fort Campbell. Anyways, one night they said, hey, here's your assignment. You all have an envelope, and in that envelope is a restaurant or whatever in this town. And by the way, Clarksville, Tennessee's not that big.
Yep.
And we all had to go different places. And we all had to, our assignment was to get the name, phone number, address, and birthday of somebody at that place we went to. And could not be a female.
Okay.
And yeah, so there I was at the worst restaurant in this fucking town. I swear to God, they gave me it still operates. I'm sure that it's a front for some human trafficking. But me like talking to some random guy at the bar, he's probably thinking I'm hitting on him. And I'm like trying to find out ways. I'm like, oh man, it's my birthday today. When's your birthday? But like it taught me, I'm like, I got everything out of this fucking dude.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no way. This dude just gave me his address, his birthday. I probably could have got his social security number if I wanted.
Listen, I told that to my wife when we were early dating, early, because she didn't know anything about the Army, let alone Special Forces. And I said, look, I just got to let you know, like, you got no hope right now. It's already a done deal between me and you. And she's like, really? I said, yeah, because Green Berets are trained in the art of seduction. And she goes, what? I said, yeah, we're trained in the art of seduction. I mean, it's unconventional warfare, but it's seduction. I go, there's 7 phases of UW. There's 7 phases. You can apply them directly on seduction. I go, so, you got no hope. And she literally looked at me. She goes, does that work for you? Does that line work for you? I'm like, all right. You call me out, but there's truth to it though.
Which wife was this?
The only one that matters. But there's truth to that, because you know how to talk to people, and at the end of the day, you know how to get people to do things for you, whether they're aware of it or not.
Yeah.
And it's not nefarious. I mean, it's just a lot of times, like your example of this guy, most people want to talk. Yeah. You just got to give them an opportunity to talk.
That's right. And that's sales.
It's sales. It's sales. It's also seduction, but it's sales. We like business development. It is. I told that I was talking to the communications director for Beaufort, South Carolina. This wonderful woman. I said, ma'am, every conversation, it has to be the most important one you've ever had, regardless of what the topic is and who you're talking to. I said, if you're listening with all 5 of your senses to someone, I said, it's like a politician wanting your vote. Every vote's important. You can't blow off anybody. It's the same with conversations. Every conversation has to be important, because from conversation comes opportunity. And I 100% believe that.
Yeah.
And so, but you got to be able to be a conversationalist, which there's a bit of an art to that. You have to make people comfortable around you. You have to engage with them. You can't just talk the whole time. You actually have to listen. Yeah. But you have to make people feel important without it coming across as this guy wants something.
Yeah.
And Green Berets are good at that.
I think the best compliment somebody could give somebody is, you are a good listener.
Well,
right?
Yeah. Well, when I was going through divorce number 1, the Army sent me to West Point to be a TAC officer. So the little known trivia means nothing. I was the first 18 series TAC officer at West Point. Yeah, which is a big damn deal. But they sent me to get a graduate degree, and it was in counseling and senior leader development. And that was the biggest thing I got out of it, was how important listening. And my wife will tell you I don't listen worth shit, and she's right. But when it comes to a conversation, I know how to listen. And some people come by it naturally, but most folks have to work at it. Yeah. But that was a year of studying, and that's all I remember out of it. So maybe I didn't listen worth a shit, but no, it's incredibly important, because it shows people they're important when you're paying attention to them.
Yeah, it makes them feel good. It makes them feel important.
They're important.
Yeah.
You're not looking at your watch. You're not looking at your phone. You're not looking at the TV. You're looking at them.
It's so hard to do now, by the way.
Oh, there's so many distractions.
I kick myself when the times where I'm talking to my kid and I start looking at my phone, my kids, and it's just like, oh, dude, what are you doing, man? And it's not even, it's not even like, it's not like it's a message or anything. It's just like bullshitting, dude. And that fucking pisses me off.
No, but you're exactly right. We all do it. We're all, it's an addiction, it's like, and I lived more years without a phone than I have with one, but yet, and I don't think I'm as bad as others, but I'm still guilty.
Yeah, we all are. We all are. And by the way, we, people like you and me, and people of our age, we can't make it. It's very obvious when we're on our phone, because we're looking at it. You're like,
oh yeah, we're not slick at all.
Wait a minute, this ain't working. Dave, let's transition real quick, because
sure.
Okay, so we talked about your journey, West Point.
Yep.
Great.
Army,
SF, all those good things.
Yep. Defense
contractor.
And then here we go.
We didn't go into any war stories, right? But that's fine.
We can circle back if you want to.
Yeah.
But here, I'll tell you what, a life-changing event, okay? Because I was getting paid good money as a defense contractor, and still get paid good money as a defense contractor.
We're talking about him transitioning to being Tropical Smoothie.
Yeah, this is how that journey began. I'd never heard of Tropical Smoothie Cafe in my life. And in 2010, My wife found one here in Columbia. It was tucked away in a little corner. It wasn't known, but it had a good following. And she ate there, and she came back to me and she goes, "Hey, I found a place. It's healthier food." And so when I heard health food, all I heard was tofu and wheatgrass. And I'm like, no, thank you. And
hard pass.
Yeah. But even then, because at the time, my wife was a social worker and an aerobics instructor. And then we had a very young son who was born in 2009. And, I was traveling a lot for work. So it was a very dynamic life. We certainly wasn't, there was never any Norman Rockwell dinner paintings going on in our house. So it was another option for eating out. And so at first I said no. And then, of course, I went there and it was good. Food was good. Smoothies were good. And so we became patrons. And after about a year, we heard they were going out of business because the owner was in New Jersey and his son was managing it. And his son was interested in everything but managing the store. And so that's when my wife, she gets full credit and blame, depending on what day it is. But my wife looked at me and said, "We got to get one of these." And I was like, "I don't know anything about running a store or, a restaurant. And it's fast casual, it's counter service." I said, I don't know. And she goes, "We'll just pay somebody to run it for us. But we need one of these."
She really just wanted the smoothies, man.
Well, but she when we were dating, she was like, "I want to own my own business one day, but I really want somebody else to run it for me." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, that's the American dream, build something from nothing," thinking we're never going to do that. Well, she teed it up. She's like, "Hey, we need to buy one of these." And so I looked into a Tropical Smoothie. To buy a franchise was just the ability to open one was $25,000 at the time. I believe it's more expensive now. But for veterans, DD 214 holders, it was $12,500. And I was so damn naive, man. I'm like, $12,500? Hell, man, we could swing that. Not realizing that it was going to cost me about $270,000 to open the first store, all in.
The $12,500 is just a licensing fee?
No, that's you buy you basically buy a franchise. That's the money you pay to Tropical Smoothie to be able to develop a store and then eventually open a store. But everything involved with it, the equipment, the leasing, the build out, the marketing, everything. I've opened 3 stores and each price has been different. If you can build onto a store that already was, one, so then your build out's not as expensive. But our first store was $270. Our second store was about $220. And then our last store was $400 because that was just gravel on a 7-story building. But return on investment was about 3.5 years for all of them. And I worked the numbers and I was like, And the first store had a following, and I was like, if we can get open, we're gonna make money. And so I thought the risk assessment I did was that this was minimal, and so I shoved every penny we had in. And I borrowed a little bit from my mother-in-law. We paid her back immediately, but we had nothing but a store. And we both were working, it's like, and that was my insurance was like, well, I work for NEK. They pay me good money. So it's not like I'm risking our house.
Yeah.
Well, then
you got fired.
Yeah. Well, we opened in August of 2010. No, that's not accurate. 2012 took us a year and a half to find a location, but, to find a location, then open, yada, yada. But it took us longer than I thought. But August of 2012, we opened. And then December 2012, I got a layoff notice. And we had nothing. And so that was stressful. I told my wife she wasn't going to lose her house, that I would go to I started doing 3-month turn and burns into Afghanistan. But I was fortunate to pick up a Silverback 7, and I got that job through a network. A West Point classmate who also went Special Forces introduced me to a guy he served with in first group who worked for Silverback 7, and he got me the interview. And then the owner of the company was an SF guy out of 7th group. The COO was out of 10th group. So everybody was SF. A couple of them knew of me, so I got hired by them, so it was fine. Well, we opened the first store. Our initial manager did not work out, and we realized that if we were going to make a go out of it, we had to have more than one store. Because profit margin is not big on these stores.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, everybody's like, oh, you're making a killing. And I'm like,
like 8%.
I will say this for Tropical Smoothie. For us, we're a little north of that. We do better than the average bear.
Yeah.
But when you go to these big fancy restaurants, you're only looking at 4 or 5% profit margin for those places. They make it in volume and the menu.
Yeah.
But it's it doesn't take much. That's why so many restaurants fold, man. It doesn't take much to all of a sudden get behind. And so while we were profitable that first year, we decided to open a second one. And we shoved all in again. It was cheaper. And my wife quit her job to run both stores. And so it's like, all right, well, income-wise, we'll be fine because, we're losing your income, but we'll have the second store. And then we skipped a year and we got crushed in taxes and learned some lessons there. And then we opened up a third store on the University of South Carolina campus, or technically it's just off campus, but I got 700 students that sleep above my store.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. And that I found that location from another networked into our landlord in our second store also had a construction company. And he told me that, hey, South Carolina's turned this parking lot into a dorm. And here's the company that's going to be managing it. So you call them now. We got the corner location. When the students are in town, that's our busiest store. Like right now, it's spring break. Right now, it's spring break. So, we're closing early. But we, man, it's been quite a ride. Franchising is an interesting world. You work for the franchise. You will pay them their tribute as agreed to in your contract. You're not always going to agree with what they do. But with Tropical Smoothie, it's profitable. And you don't mind working hard as long as you're able to show something in the bank for it.
Yeah.
I've had my differences with Tropical Smoothie, and yet I've got an application in for 2 more stores right now. So we're looking to expand. We're trying to get to 5 stores because I think with 5 stores, and I can hire a no-kidding general manager and a no-kidding property manager, just because my wife and I do that now.
Yeah.
I do all the maintenance. I do all the deliveries. I do all the marketing. My wife handles day-to-day operations and then all the back of the house paperwork, payroll, taxes, tip reports, all that stuff she handles. My wife works harder than I do. She's the hardest working. I work hard to keep up with her. She's the reason we've been successful. And I played my part, but without her, we wouldn't have made it. And that's a fact. We made a good run of it. We opened, I opened up a pizza store for about 6 months. It didn't work out. But yet I was in the MBA program at USC. I used my GI Bill to get an MBA.
Congrats.
Yeah, thanks. I did the professional MBA program, which is nights and weekends. A classmate was with the athletic department, and they wanted the space. So the athletic department paid me full asking for it. So I called out with a tie because it cost me some time and frustration, but it didn't cost me any money. And then we opened up an escape room franchise in Myrtle Beach that if I lived in Myrtle Beach, I would have made it work. But we were too far away. We never could find anybody that was invested in it to try to make it a go. And after about 3 years, I gave it back to the franchise. I just, hey, look, I can walk away and you can take it over and take over the lease, or I declare bankruptcy, and then you got to report that in your franchise disclosure document, however you want to do it. So they just took over operations. So that was a loss. So we've opened five businesses now in 10 years, and I'm 3-1-1. And
Hey, that's not bad.
No, it's not bad at all. I'm very proud of what we've accomplished. There's a lot of days I don't like it. You're dealing with the public, and a lot of people in the public are going to be in a bad mood, and nothing you're going to do is going to fix that. A lot of people don't treat food service people very nice, quite frankly. They just don't.
Really true.
You're there to give me my food, so make it happen. But we got great kids that work for us by and large. Not all of them are good, and with those, you move on your way. But we've had the pleasure of having some really wonderful kids work for us. The vast majority of our clientele are great people. They're either friendly or they're neutral, which is wonderful. You walk up to the register, you give your order, you wait patiently, we get it, you leave. Thank you. You're the best person I'm going to have today. You are. I mean, you don't complain.
Do you make smoothies and run the register?
Yes.
Get in there, man.
I'm better on register because I talk to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And it also helps slow down things because I talk. And that allows people in the back to play catch up.
Mm-hmm.
But I can do register. I can make smoothies, although I can make an excellent smoothie. I'm just so slow because I don't have the recipes memorized. I can pour a smoothie, and there's an art to pour a smoothie and run it out. I've washed more dishes than anybody we have. And I can do food finish, which is the wrap, putting the finishing touches on a sandwich or a wrap and wrapping it up, throwing it in a bag, make sure the order's correct, and to run it out. Which that gets hectic, man, when the screen's full of orders and you're trying to keep track of them all. The one thing I haven't done is food build. So after 10 years, I still don't make a sandwich, which has nothing to do. That's my inability. I told that we've got 5 full-time employees with us that are on salary. I told one of them earlier this week, I said, look, man, you got to teach me how to build. I said, I can't duck it anymore. So yeah. I think next week I'll be building sandwiches. But no, I worked in the store. It was rainy today. I was supposed to work in a store, but they didn't need me. So I went in and washed dishes and helped them get caught up. And then I ran product. We were out of sticky labels. So I went to one store, grabbed a box, and went to another store. I do a lot of driving some days because, we have 3 stores. Each store is about 20 minutes apart. And, this store's out of this store's out of that, and I do the maintenance, like, the toilet broke. A couple of weeks ago, I was up with a plumber jackhammering floors because we had both toilets were constantly backing up on us. And in the fall of the line, for whatever reason, it had gotten negative versus, a degree positive. So we had to go in there and replace some things and prop it up. And it was a pain in the butt job, but it needed to be done, and
I mean, here you are, 14 years?
Yeah, 14 years.
That's hard. You're still working hard. And
I have 2 jobs. I have 2 jobs.
Yeah,
I work every day. Because when you own your own business, every day's a Monday. And we're open 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And you never know when somebody's not going to show up. My tummy hurts. I get a doctor's note. And then, hey, they're short here. Or, oh my gosh, we got this store slammed. And so if you can get there in time to help, great. But a lot of times you show up after the fact, but they'll have dishes stacked to the ceiling. And so you're like, all right, I'll wash all these dishes. Don't worry about it. But the beauty of the 2 jobs is as long as I got my cell phone in my pocket and I wear hearing aids, but they double as Bluetooth devices. So someone can literally call me and want to talk about a teaming or capture management or going after an opportunity. And I'll have that conversation while I'm washing dishes. Mm-hmm. And so, I can be discussing a, $150 million contract and how we're going to win it and developing win themes while I'm washing dishes and filling ice and, getting more sugar or replacing or prepping. You can sit at a table and, prep peanut butter or, lettuce or chicken or whatever's needed, sliced tomatoes. You just do it. And the whole time I'm talking like I'm talking to you, but people can only hear my side of the conversation. So sometimes it gets a little weird for them, but,
you ever mix them up? Like somebody wants hey, somebody wants to train an army and you're like, yeah, man, I'll get some bananas to you immediately.
Yeah. Every once in a while, now I had a call today with Tropical Smoothie, about some marketing things they wanted to do. And I'm not happy with, we're having supply chain shortages right now, right? Yeah. So this week I got no tortillas and no pineapples. Well, I was able to source it locally. But then Tropical Smoothie runs a big promo on wraps. And so I said, look, you and operations got to talk to each other. I said, because I don't have any tortillas and you're now offering wraps for half price. I said, that just doesn't make any sense. And she's like, well, these are national programs. I said, well, then tailor them. You can tailor them based on supply chain shortages.
Yeah.
And I said, I said, look, and I understand marketing and I understand your job. And your job's to make money for corporate, not worry about me. I get that. I said, but I'm your client too. And I just need your help. I said, I just need your help. That's all. I'm not asking you to not do your job. I just need your help a little bit.
Yeah.
And, they pretend and she was a smart young lady. Maybe some will come from it. But I tell you, Tropical Smoothie, as they're supposed to, they guard their brand. They don't, the recipes work, do the recipes. Sell what's approved in the store. Don't sell anything else. And I get that. And I understand that. And frankly, I respect that. It just, I'm hard-headed and I like to, I think
you found, Dave, another chain of command. You are a company commander.
But I'll tell you what, though, you're right. You're 100% right. But I'll tell you this, though. It's like being a team leader. No, but it's like being a team leader in Uganda where your chain of command is Sakir and Fort Bragg.
Yeah. They're a little bit removed from the problem set.
They're not there. You're the guy. You're the guy until they show up.
That's right.
And when they show up, then you got to say, okay, you take them around. We get inspected both for, the government inspects us for health regulation compliance, and then Tropical Smoothie inspects us for an additional layer of safety as well as TTP's compliance. And when they show up, you cater to them and make sure that they get whatever they need, and you try to get them out. I don't shave, man. That's
what you do in the army, right? Like, shit, chain of command's coming. Everybody get rid of your beard.
Well, that was funny because when I was in Afghanistan running operations, because when I went back, so for 6 months in 2002, January to June of 2002, running operations, everybody was wearing a beard. So there was no worry about shaving thing. But yes, I heard all the stories about, hey, chain of command's coming. Okay, who's going to brief them? Draw straws, or okay, team leader, time to shave because you're the man, or you're the spokesperson or spokesmodel. But so yeah, I mean, we work our asses off, man. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Would you recommend? Okay, so let's put it this way, Dave. Is I get calls and emails from people trying to recruit me into franchisee programs quite frequently. And I believe it could be because I have an MBA. It could be because I'm also a veteran.
Congratulations to you, man.
Thank you. But I've heard that many veterans get these calls and I'm like, sounds like a lot of fucking.
Well, veterans are prime targets because they know how to work and they know how to organize and they know how to get things done. And so they represent less risk to the franchisor. If a franchise business development individual or business liaison can recruit a veteran, then they have a higher likelihood of being successful.
Is that quantified? I'd like to say it is. Let's just say it is. It's quantified. You can find it on Harvard Business Review.
If I say yes, then it's to me like cite your source, and
it's on the Harvard Business Review.
The Dave Duffy memory. I said so. But the quick answer is yes, it's been worth it. Yeah. That's the quick answer, because I was making $5 a day on the farm as a teen. Yeah. And now we're in good shape. We're in good shape.
Yeah. But you gotta bring your work boots, man.
No, 100%. Nothing's gonna be given to you.
You gotta bring your attitude. You gotta bring good attitude.
And I tell you, the only thing my wife and I were arguing about is the stores. I mean, so there's pros and cons to it. It's hard running a business. It's hard, but most things worth having or doing in life are going to be hard.
Yeah.
And so, right. and the thing about, and the biggest benefit of a franchise is that and this is quantifiable, your chances of success are higher. So you open up a Tropical Smoothie Cafe. There's over 1,000 of them now. When we opened, it was about 250 of them. Now there's over 1,000. When you walk into a Tropical Smoothie, when you walk into a McDonald's, you know what you're going to get. You already know the menu. You know what you want, and you have an expectation of what that's going to be. And so you went in there because I don't have to see what's on the menu.
Yeah.
You know,
it's always the same. It's McDonald's.
Exactly. And so as a consumer, it's safer for you to go there because you know what you're going to pay and you know that you're going to like it, by and large. And so that's why franchises are successful, because you're not opening. Like if I opened up Dave's Diner, I got to create my menu, create the recipes, create the training, create the logo, create the color scheme, develop all the vendor supply, you know, who's going to supply my food, my linens, my paper products, all that stuff. And then if there's a problem, I don't have anybody I can reach out to. Like, you know, if I got a problem with the register, I call up IT. I got support
built in.
We have support, and you pay for that support. I mean, that's part of your franchise arrangement. You know, I pay 11% of my till goes to Tropical Smoothie.
Wow.
Hell yeah. I mean, but our stores last year, did
well
3.3 million in sales. You know, and it's hard work. It never ends. But when you got money in your bank account and you're able to, pre-COVID, we're able to go on a vacation, you know, you can drive a nice vehicle, you can live in a nice house, you know your kids are going to have opportunities if they choose to take it or take advantage of it. That's what we all try to do. And I try to remind myself of that when the day is just hellish, you know, when you got people giving you 1 stars on social media, when you got people, you know, screaming at you and calling you a racist in the store, or just, you know, calling you names or, wow, you know, whatever. I mean, I had a woman call my wife a damn C word, and, you know, because she didn't, and it's just amazing. And then you're stressing about a catering, you know, was everything right, or you forgot something, and how are we going to do this? And then it's like, oh man, do we want to keep doing this? And my wife and I have had that conversation so many times, but it's kind of become who we are. I mean, we're known. There's 8 stores currently in Columbia, South Carolina. We were the first 3. We're known. People know us as Tropical Smoothie, not the other franchises. And we do all the support for the university. I enjoy taking food and smoothies to the Gamecock softball team. You know, I enjoy supporting the football team, man. During winter practice, I take them 175 24-ounce smoothies on a Tuesday night at 8:30. So when they got off the field, it was waiting for them. And you get to know staff, and, you know, the strength coach for the basketball team is a good friend of mine, and it's just your way of kind of becoming part of the community. And so I don't want to do it forever. I mean, I'm 57 years old. I don't want to do it forever, but we're not ready to quit. We're just not. And
do what you can while you have the energy, Dave.
Well, my dad says you got to make hay while the sun's shining. Well, the sun's still shining, so we gotta keep hustling with it. Yeah. And I enjoy the hustle part of it. It's just that sometimes it just wears you out. And then if one spouse is having a bad day, then it's okay if the other ones can kind of cover. But when both of you are frustrated or tired or angry, the best thing you do is try to remember not to take it out on each other, although you're the only two you have to take it out on, so my wife's better about it than me, but I'm trying.
Well, that's all you can do.
Yeah, but it's been a good, I mean, it's
how often do you call work food dinner?
I didn't have it tonight. We had leftovers tonight, and there was because I'll bring mistakes home. Like, oh, hey, I made the sandwich. They said no tomato. I put a tomato on it. I'm like, all right, wrap it up. That's my lunch.
Nice.
So we'll do that. But I have guys that call me up, guys I serve with, asking questions about the franchise world. I speak to the business classes at the University of South Carolina about franchising or being a small business owner. All that's involved with it, because there's so much involved with it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're the last one to get paid. And as long as there's a little bit left on the end of it, but it's not a bad, but here's like anything else, man. You can do it. You got to have the right location. You got to have the right product.
Yeah.
And you got to have the right people. And it's easy to get one of those wrong, man. It really is. I mean, like I said, I had two businesses that didn't work. So it's not like I got the Midas touch. I don't,
Shit happens,
but
right?
It does.
And by the way, right. You're brave for getting out there and doing that. I know a couple entrepreneurs here in the town I live, and they're both SF guys, both doing fucking fantastic. Actually, 3 or 4 SF guys, and they're all doing great. And one of them has turned his small store. He ended up changing it into he basically bought a franchise. Mm-hmm. It was a shoe store.
Yeah, I got you.
It was a shoe store, and now it's under a franchise, but they're doing great. And but it's a lot of work.
Well, you can't be afraid.
No.
Now I tell people, I said, don't be reckless. When I talk to these classes, I said, look, don't be afraid, but don't be reckless. But take reasonable risk, mitigate it as best you can, then flip and go for it, man. I tell people, I said, look, I've been broke twice in my life. Hell, as an 05, I slept in my truck for 10 days. I mean, it's okay.
Yeah.
But I don't ever want to be broke again, but I'm not afraid of it. Yeah. And, and do that, and then just work smart, which SF guys like to brag about. We work smarter, not harder.
Sometimes.
But sometimes working smart means you got to work hard.
Yeah.
That's right. But you got to hustle.
You got to hustle. And you've learned it. And Dave?
Cliff, we've talked for a long time, brother. I appreciate your patience with me, man.
No, I loved it. I loved every minute of it. And I appreciate you coming on the Return to Base podcast and giving us your knowledge and your advice and experience. And we do a lot of these podcasts because, quite frankly, many veterans, myself included, got out and I don't even know what's out there, dude. Like I was thinking, do I need to go to a defense contractor? Which wouldn't have been bad, except, I kind of wanted to stay home. But if you don't know what's out there and you don't know somebody, or you don't have somebody to ask, then it becomes more difficult. So I hope, with your permission, we'll in the show notes, we'll put your LinkedIn or whatever you got.
Yeah, 100%.
Veteran has a question for you.
Yeah, tell them to reach out to me. I do it all the time, and if I can help it, Lord knows there's been so many people that have helped me along the way. So if I can pay it forward absolutely, man, not a problem.
Well, yeah, we appreciate you, and just keep doing what you're doing. Keep your head, nose to the grindstone.
Same thing.
Man, I'm just trying to float here, man, and I've never been a good floater.
I just know my throat's dry as hell, so I got to go get a Guinness, man. But
there you go.
But Cliff, I thoroughly enjoyed it, man.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, the incomparable Lieutenant Colonel, retired Dave Duffy.
Thank you, Cliff.
All right. So thank you for joining us for this episode of Return to Base. That, of course, was Dave Duffy, a retired Special Forces officer turned franchise owner, government contractor. It just goes to show you that there's many different paths that a veteran can choose. Sometimes they choose us, to be quite honest, but we're not pigeonholed into one thing or another. Dave's interesting because many of us think that our careers will end up being some type of government service or defense contracting. And very much so, Dave kind of followed that path, but in a different way. And then, of course, going from a patron to the owner of a couple Tropical Smoothie franchises. It's an interesting case study when you look at it. Like, does a Special Forces officer fit the profile of somebody who is going to own a Tropical Smoothie? I didn't think so, but why not, right? We have somebody who, number one, takes ownership. Number two, is able to set about a plan and achieve those results that they're after. And just somebody who works real hard, right? That describes many veterans out there in the community, and probably most veterans, at least most veterans that I know. So the world is open for your exploration. Find something that makes you happy, and you'll be more fulfilled for it. I don't think I could ever own a franchise. It's just not something that I'm particularly interested in. But, I don't think that Dave set out to own a franchise at first either. But he opened his mind to the possibility, and look where he is. He's happy. He's living the life. Of course, it goes along with, does he work for himself or does he work for somebody else? A little bit of both, right? So congratulations to Dave on his success. And for everybody else, I hope you'll join us for the next episode of Return to Base, which should be coming out in another 2 weeks. Until then, have a great week.